Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for my rational perspective on Leicester nil, Chelsea 3. Chelsea start the winter period, the crucial winter period, in the best way possible. An almost perfect performance. As I'll leave in a link below, my written sort of review piece for Football.London today, obviously covering the game. I feel that is the best performance in the Premier League under Thomas Tuchel so far. Just obviously, it's very easy to say the hype around the game, the feeling of the game. Given our recent history at Leicester, sort of plays into it as well. We haven't won there in the Premier League until today. You have to go back to 2017 under Antonio Conte. But I just felt the energy, the pressing, the movement, the form of players, the ease to which Chelsea swept aside Leicester today, I thought was a real statement from Thomas Tuchel's team, especially that opening half an hour. And even beyond that, Chelsea could have won this game by more than 3 goals. And if you have complaints after this game, if you're really moaning after this game, I mean, firstly, I don't know if football's for you because, you're going to be moaning forever because rarely do you have a perfect game. But also, secondly, I think it shows you how much of a privileged position Chelsea are in currently. Still no Romelu Lukaku, wasn't involved today. Timo Werner was in the matchday squad but didn't get off the bench. Players like Mason Mount, who was the only one who turned up back in January at the King Power, had a pretty poor day today. But that didn't matter to Chelsea. Both him and Havertz I thought were pretty poor, but they still had a hand in their off-the-ball movement. They were still part of a cohesive team that, really broke down Leicester in that first half and especially later on in that second half. The way Tuchel was able to bring on players like Christian Pulisic and Hakim Ziyech, players who've been questioned for different reasons, but the two combined to make the third goal and look like really exciting additions that could offer Chelsea some things in the coming weeks. And of course, there are obvious names we can bring up here: Callum Hudson-Odoi, Reece James, Ben Chilwell, Thiago Silva, N'Golo Kante, Jorginho, Antonio Rudiger, Trevor Chalobah, Mendy with some big saves. So many parts of today were just so impressive. It really was. It was enjoyable to watch. And I don't know, I mean, am I going overboard when I think and I look at a performance like that? I remember on this channel after the Spurs 3-0 win, feeling Chelsea a very mature team. I think I said the same after we beat Arsenal, where sure, like, you can look at the opposition and say this isn't like Man City away, this isn't Liverpool away. But it's just a level of conviction in the performance at a ground that Chelsea have struggled with that just makes you sit up and think, there is something different about this season. There is the defensive security, obviously, I think is the main thing. Chelsea just aren't letting in goals. They're yet to concede a goal from open play away from home in the Premier League this season. That is just a ridiculous stat. But just the maturity, the clinical nature, the convictions to the way Thomas Tuchel's team goes about their business so often. And I spoke after the Burnley game, the last video I made before the international break, where I wasn't actually that negative about the performance because I think it was a very good performance. And I think creatively Chelsea had one of their better days. The problem was that day the finishing was just quite poor. That really wasn't the issue today. I mean, Chelsea had some brilliant finishes in that second half that could have made it more than 3-0. It was just being offside at a number of times. Close, fine margins that you think on another day that's probably going to be onside. And I'm quite happy Chelsea are getting a lot of offside goals out of the way when we're 3-0 up rather than it being a really tense 0-0 when it would be probably more costly. But the fact that Chelsea continued that even with the international break, and as we've mentioned this season, even with different personnel, you can throw in several different players, the combinations, whether it's a different back three that it was today, no Andreas Christensen, such a key player for Tuchel, but wasn't involved today. And that's not demeaning him. That's just saying the strength of the squad. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I think, has had a really good start to the season, wasn't involved until later on. As I say, Lukaku, Werner, there are players that just, when Tuchel brings them in and out, there doesn't seem to be a massive drop-off. I mean, I do think there are consistent themes in the team that have to be there, I think, to perform at the highest level. I think mostly, and this has been talked about and written about so often, is the wing-backs. I think Ben Chilwell and Reece James playing consistently together in the starting lineup for Chelsea, which didn't really happen for the first time. I think it was Norwich. I think that's the first time in the Premier League this season the two players started the game at the same time. They are essential, and you saw it again today. Ben Chilwell obviously setting up the first goal from a corner, the consistent runs he made behind that Leicester backline that just are so hard to counteract. Reece obviously had the assist for the second, but you saw the movement Both of them, they just either if they're going outwards, to overlap, their creativity from set pieces, the way they just link with everyone, they are so vital to the way Chelsea play. That's not a new take. That's not a new piece of analysis. If you watch Chelsea pretty closely, you know how vital the wing backs are, especially as a five. Chelsea very much against, Brendan Rodgers kind of matched up the formation today with Tuchel, and it very much was a case where Leicester were forced to have five at the back, we had five in attack. It very much was for Chelsea for large periods of that first half, a 3-2-5. When Leicester changed things up, they brought on Maddison, they brought on Iheanacho. I think they moved to four at the back, or at least had three in midfield. And that gave Chelsea a few more problems, but we rode that wave and we got back in control. And let's just get to some individual performances. Starting from the back, Mendy had to make some decent saves, to be fair to him, but he had a pretty quiet day. The back three, Trevor Chalobah, you have to remind people this guy did not play a minute of competitive football for Chelsea before that Super Cup game back in August against Villarreal. I mean, he looks like he's been playing at Chelsea for years. And again, he's called on, he's trusted by Tuchel, and he performs. He's been doing this for months and months now. And it just shows you, the future of this defence, which is a little bit uncertain with Rudiger, obviously, contract, Christensen, Dave, Thiago Silva. I feel like Christensen and Rudiger are the two more pressing ones, because you kind of feel with Dave and Thiago Silva, it's much more relaxed with those two. I kind of feel like both of them, especially Dave, gets to choose his own future. But Chalobah is offering a long-term solution here for Chelsea. It's really incredible to see his intelligence to keep, I think it was Lookman offside in the first half. Brilliant. In the end, it looks like a very simple thing. He's clearly offside, but it was the alert nature of Chalobah to see where his fellow defenders were, to keep that line, to make sure Lookman was offside. Really, I think one of Leicester's most dangerous moves in that first half. And it just shows you the experience and maturity he has, that he's gained for a number of good loans to get back to Chelsea and perform at such a high level. Thiago Silva, an absolute defensive masterclass. And I think you could say the same about Rudiger, who loves scoring against Leicester. 50% of his, I think, Chelsea goals or Premier League goals have come against Leicester. So he adores playing against them. But both two, just incredible defenders at the moment, their level of form. And Thiago Silva does not look his age. He looks like a guy that's, at the peak of his powers. We are watching a European legend play, and it's just wonderful to see him at this level, performing so consistently. Tuchel managing his fitness well, obviously at the age he is. Obviously having the options to rotate in that back three when he needs to. Cesar Azpilicueta obviously was not involved today, which is, staggering. And that's incredible as well. Think how much of a mainstay Dave has been in our back line, whether as a right back, a wing back, a right centre back, for years and years and years. But there's been a few times recently where Tuchel has not played Dave, which is a bit of a surprise, which is a player he's really leaned on in his tenure so far. I think it just shows you that there is a point beyond Dave, and that's not disrespectful to him. That's just, we need to have that. We need to have that longevity, that succession plan. And I think Chalobah offers a bit of that. If Thiago Silva decides to stay another season, not quite sure what's going to happen with Rudiger, but he's performing. He's probably the best performing centre-back in Europe, I think, in the moment, just in terms of the level he's played at since Tuchel's arrival in January. Spoke about James, spoke about Chilwell, both of them absolutely incredible today. Kante, Jorginho as a Ballon d'Or nominated midfield duo. Jorginho, you just kind of saw both of them, the way they combined for the Champions League winning run, Kante becoming an 8. That finish for the second goal was Frank Lampard-esque. It reminded me of a Lampard-esque goal. Truly extraordinary finish. There are times Kante, I think because of his humility, keeps some of that technique back. I mean, some of the goals he has scored, I remember one against Liverpool a few years ago where he made a similar sort of run from a deeper position and just curled it in the top corner. He's got that technique. I think we should see it a little bit more, but you need, especially this season, I want to see the double six, at least one of them be a lot more daring, and it's great to have that with Kante. I think this was actually his best performance of the season. Very stop-start season because of his injury, and I think fitness sort of precautions from Chelsea, but he was outstanding against his former club. Jorginho too. Just the way the two, even when one of the two made a mistake, the other one was there to cover for him. Just such a wonderful balance, and they very much set the tone and tempo for the game. I mean, it was like they were playing a different sport to, I think it was Ndidi and Zamar. They just absolutely controlled that middle of the pitch and made it so easy for the rest of the team to click. And Jorginho obviously is a massive part of that. I hope his knock is just a knock. I hope it's not a long-term injury, because we want him obviously for Juventus in midweek and then Man United next Sunday. Yeah, I said Mason Mount, Kai Havertz. I think both of them had quite poor games. I think decision-making from both of them at times was poor, could have been a lot better. I think it says a lot, though, that Callum Hudson-Odoi stayed on the pitch. Callum is now the first choice left winger. The movements he was making, the way he was connecting with the rest of the team, moving from left to right, he was such a big part of Chelsea's fluidity today. He has fully taken his opportunity. I'm so happy that maybe once again, because of fortune and injury, he's been able to get this run in the team, but he's got this run in his favoured role. And I don't think there can be any debate now. Callum needs to be Chelsea's left winger, or at least for the time being, he is first choice there. He has taken his opportunity. Part of the issue with Callum's Chelsea career is the lack of consistency, or the lack of chances that we've got to see to make a firm judgment about what he can do, what he can't do. Is he a player worth persisting with? In this run you've seen, I think quite emphatically, he is a player worth persisting with. He makes Chelsea's attack look a lot better within all the other elements that we speak about, the midfield too, the wing backs. I feel Callum is just such a great part of that. He is obviously, not a small part is kind of demeaning, but he is a part of the wider sort of attacking freedom and creativity and just sort of link we've seen in recent weeks. But Callum fully deserves his minutes, and I just hope he continues playing, because I think he absolutely deserves it. Pulisic, coming off the bench, he scored for the USA over the international break from the bench. He's proving once again that he's such a devastating player off the bench, like he was in the early months of his Chelsea career under Frank Lampard. At a similar time of the year, there are things that Pulisic does in the box that I've consistently said this, that you just can't teach. You can't teach what Pulisic has, that anticipation. It's just instinct. He knows where to be inside the box. And it was great to see Hakim Ziyech, who I've criticised in recent weeks, play well off the bench as well, really taking his opportunity. Some of those passes, the connection that both him and Pulisic had, is maybe something that Tuchel will lean on a little bit more. Maybe those two just naturally fit together. Pulisic could have scored earlier on from a Hakim Ziyech cross. It was a really good low cross that Pulisic once again anticipated. The second time he finishes it off, and just for both of those players, I think the perfect sort of end for them, or the perfect moment for them, because I think both of them needed a positive contribution soon for Chelsea with the amount of players they're competing with for minutes. Obviously Pulisic fitness-wise, Ziyech form-wise, and questions over his future. For both of them, that's going to do them the world of good, I think, moving forward, and shows that Tuchel once again the strength in depth. So moving forward, we got Juventus in midweek, a massive game, kind of a group-defining game in the Champions League, where you feel the team that wins that, or at least, if Chelsea were to draw that, it very much gives the weight to Juventus, a couple points ahead of us in that final game. I really want to see Chelsea do Juventus, because we should have in the first game. I think we were really underwhelming over in Italy. And just seeing how Juventus have struggled, they're a team I think Chelsea should be putting away, and seeing how Tuchel approaches that. And then next weekend at the Stamford Bridge, the Sunday 4 o'clock kickoff against Man United, who at the time of speaking, I've seen reports about Solskjaer losing his job. So by the time we get to that game, typical Solskjaer will not be in the dugout, and they may have a new manager bounce. But big week ahead, big period for Chelsea. And really, as I've said, I think it couldn't have started much better. A clean sheet, 3-0, confidence, players to come back. I think this was the best performance under Thomas Tuchel in the Premier League. Obviously not overall, because that goes to the Champions League winning run, the Real Madrid game, the Atletico Madrid game, and obviously the final against Man City. Emotionally, that's always going to top. That's going to be very hard for Tuchel to overcome in his Chelsea career, unfortunately. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Check out my articles for Football London. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea. Have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you again.